Welcome back to the Retro Sports Gamer channel. And tonight I am going to talk about the trip that I took 2.5 weeks ago to Ohio to play in the Tupa Bowl 4 in Columbus. And also I hit up another Tecmo Super Bowl tournament the next day, a satellite tournament for the Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl tournament in the Cincinnati area. So wanted to talk about those both tonight. Give a little recap on those. Give a personal tournament report, and then also go over some of the brackets and group play for Tupa Bowl and my thoughts on both of the tournaments. So Tupa Bowl was kind of on my radar after having a conversation with Mort. For some reason in my mind, I thought Ohio was an 8-hour drive, and maybe parts of Ohio it would be from Chicago. But he's like, no, it's it's a little over 5 hours, and I didn't think he. I thought he was maybe pulling my leg, but I looked it up on Google Maps, and yeah, it was just a little bit over 5 hours, 5.5 hours. So that made the trip realistic for me. So early May, signed up for Tupa Bowl 4. I was excited for it. Granddad's Pizza was the location for Tupa Bowl. So it's Tecmo Super Bowl tournament. The thing I like about Kevin's tournament, Kevin Cabarello, is the tournament organizer of Tupa Bowl 4. Kevin's tournament is very generous with the prizes. It has an awesome raffle, which I don't win raffles very often, so I didn't win anything at this one either. But he basically he paid out the top 8, which is very generous. First place I think was $400. First 4 places got a trophy. Also, there was a tournament, a consolation tournament for the players that did not make the gold bracket, as he called it later on. So I went to the tournament with my friend Joe. I was looking for one of the other Tecmo guys from Chicago to go, but none of them could make the trip this time around. So my friend Joe's kind of a journeyman. I hadn't seen him in like a year because he went to Germany, Russia. I don't know. He's just on a journey, and he came back, and this was the first time I seen him. So I knew he would be down to go on a trip for absolutely no reason. So he didn't play in this tournament, the Tupa Bowl, but he did end up playing in the Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl tournament. So Tupa Bowl 4, traffic smooth. Show up to Tupa Bowl 4 probably right around when it's supposed to start, 11 a.m. And the chat is live. What's up, Adam? How's it going? And yeah, the location is it has way more room than you would need for the size tournament it was. I think there was 25 players total, but honestly, the venue can hold probably like 128 player tournament if it really had to. It's really big, and the bartenders, everyone's there ready to serve. They had good beer, and they had a favorite of mine that I learned in Green Bay. Kevin shared this beer with me called the Mystic Mamba. It's an Indian pale ale, really great flavor. I told him it was one of the best beers I've had. So I knew it was going to be a long day once I saw that they had that beer in stock. So that was the first beer I got, and definitely not the last. So the tournament started with a little ceremony. Woodshed and Jim Sox, those are their Tecmo names. They sang a little performance for us. Jim Sox on the guitar, Woodshed the singer. It was a parody of the "In the Air Tonight" by Phil Collins. So they had some good lyrics. It was pretty funny. I like when tournaments start with something unique like that, because you're not going to get that at every single tournament. I saw their performance from last year. I saw a video of that, so I'm glad they're keeping the tradition alive, because that set a good vibe for everything to come at Tupa Bowl 4. So tournament started right around the time it was supposed to, right after that performance. I think the big surprise was the groups that Kevin ended up making. Um, he he basically, the first two groups, and looking at the talent pool, there was even better groups later on too. But he he put some stacked groups for the first two. So my group was group one. Kevin was in my group. Louis Bunego, the Ultimate Weapon, and Gym Socks. So that was a tough group. Group two. Well, I'll just share the group stage right now. We'll take a look at that. So bear with me here. All right. So yeah, I was in the first group, and you can see the records here. Then group two was Mort, Woodshed, Chris Hendershot, Rob Hazel, Purple Haze, Fudd. In group C, Brian Adams, Kilroy, Greg, who I ended up playing later, Mike, Eric. Group D, Kevin Molnar, Andrew Vrabel, Zach Thompson, Mike Dionato, George Fought. And in Group E, Eric Kuhlman, Joe Mama, Troy King, Gavin Kinghorn, and Scott Veet. So let me talk about my performance first of all. I started off the day good. Troy wanted us on the stream. So I played Kevin first. I called a matchup that I'm pretty comfortable with overall. Just a feeler matchup is the Chiefs and Dolphins. So Kevin went with the Chiefs, and I think the Chiefs are a little bit better team in the matchup overall. They are better. They have a more balanced offensive attack. So he went with the Chiefs, and I went with the Dolphins, very comfortable with the Dolphins. The way the game ended up, I was running with Marino more than I typically do, but I guess I was just fresh and being conservative to start off with. I played pretty good defense in this. Kevin wasn't able to get much going. And I hit a couple good burn routes for touchdowns. I think I won that one 22-7. So a good way to start the tournament off. Second game I played was against Gym Socks. Now, this game was really back and forth in the second half. And basically in the first half, I got a couple stops. I believe they were both turnover on downs. Offensively, I was just cruising. It was Bengals-Eagles matchup that I called. So I was up 14-0 at half. Got the ball back at halftime, cruising down the field again. I fumbled. So there you go. Fumble, whatever. You're up 14-0. And then Jim Socks, credit to him, punches it in 14-7. So again, get the ball back, cruise down the field, take it all the way to the goal line, and then I fumble again, and he recovers it. So now it's 14-7. It's late in the fourth quarter, and he has the ball the ball back to drive it down the field and potentially tie the game, which he did do. He tied the game up 14-14 in a game that I felt like it was in total control. What's up, Troy? How's it going? So 14-14. Luckily, I won the coin toss, and offensively, I was still able to cruise down the field and score a touchdown. But that one I escaped. Even Jim Sock said after the game, he's like, Man, if I would have won that one, it wouldn't have felt right. But you know, he played good offense in the second half. He was just, you know, he took advantage of those opportunities that he got from the fumbles, and he pulled it into overtime. So 2-0, I'm feeling pretty good in the tournament. Third game, I end up going up against Ryan McKay, the ultimate weapon. He calls Bears Bengals, and I know I feel like the Bears are the better team. I'm not as comfortable with the Bears. I've talked about that before. Uh, so I won the Bengals because I just won with them, beat the Eagles. Start playing Ryan. First drive is just like he has the ball. He's slowly running the ball up the field. Uh, with the Bears, I can't call any of his plays. Now, the one thing that threw me off in this matchup is the way he used the Bears. Not that I've never seen anyone use the Bears with the dual running back offense, because I use it that way as well. But my most common opponent in that matchup usually in playing games is Mort, and he doesn't play it that way. He puts Neil Anderson at wide receiver and, you know, kind of has a passing, running, balanced attack with Johnny Bailey as the running back. So Ryan just went straight for the running attack, and I just couldn't get in his head at all with the plays. I was sitting on some plays too long, and I think I maybe called one play for a blitz the whole time for that whole game. He played good defense. My first two drives, I didn't do anything with the Bengals. Uh, so he was able to win that one pretty easily, and I felt like he did dominate me in that game. I want to say it was 21-7 or something like that. I did manage to score in the second half, but, you know, he pretty much put me away in the first. My fourth and final game in group play was against Louis Boonagel. That's Mort's brother. Louis called a matchup that I'm not particularly comfortable with, and I feel like he does a good job of that when I do play him. I've only played him twice at tournaments before. I played him at Tundra Bowl 4, I believe. So Louis called Saints Packers, and again, I do feel like the Saints are the overall better team, just not that comfortable with using the Saints. Rather go with the Packers, a little bit better quarterback. You know, you have the option to throw one up and maybe get a lucky JJ catch. And but defensively, they just don't have a lot going on. So this game was a good back and forth game. You know, not a completely high scoring affair, but at one point it was fourth quarter. Lewis is up 21-14. We're just pretty much trading touchdowns, and he gets a big stop in the fourth quarter. I think turnover on downs. There was no really big turnovers in the game, fumbles or picks. It was just back and forth, and you know, Lewis ended up taking that one. And I knew Lewis was a strong opponent, so don't feel too bad about losing that one. Now, the way this tournament worked is every single person, even after group play, had a chance to make the gold bracket. So the way Kevin did it is you had a play-in game to see if you go to gold and silver. Each person that won the group, though, they had an automatic bye to the gold bracket. So that was a pretty cool way of doing it. So like Ryan McKay and my group and Mort in the next group, these guys all had byes. Brian Adams had a bye. And Kevin Molnar and Eric Kuhlman all had byes. And then everyone else had a play-in game. So the play-in game that I had, yes, I did like the format for sure. You know, if you're gonna make a trip like that, you want to get some good games in, and definitely got those in versus some strong opponents in group play. And whenever your group's that strong, to come out 2-2 is, you know, you want to go 3-1, but you can't feel too bad going 2-2. So these guys advanced. We had a play-in game. I believe my play-in game was against Greg. and I was able to beat Greg in that game. He called Pittsburgh Dallas, and what happened early in the game is he gave up a huge run to Emmitt Smith for a touchdown, like maybe the first offensive play. And obviously, if you're going to pick the Steelers, you want to play strong D and really limit your opponent. So he was kind of fighting from behind from the get-go, and you just can't play that way with the Steelers. So he was throwing up a lot of passes after that. And, if you throw too many passes up with Bubby Brister, because that's who he had in the game at quarterback, you're going to get some picks, especially if they're covered. And that's what I was able to do. So it's 28-0. But, I could tell Greg, he still had some skill. It's just, I don't think the way the game started and the matchup really favored him. And we talked about that after the game. So Greg was definitely a good opponent. And this right here that I'm looking at is the silver bracket. So you had 9 guys in the silver bracket. It looks like Greg, my opponent for the play-in game, did win one of his games here. And then he had a close one versus Gavin, who ended up playing in the consolation finals versus Joe Mama. This game was streamed on TGFN Retro. The tournament was covered by TGFN Retro. Greg equals Bernie Kosar jersey, winner 2017, and silver bracket 2017 winner. Oh, did not know that. Yeah, so Greg could definitely play. And what was I saying? Oh, yeah, TGFN Retro covered the event. So Troy's on the mic, is the main play-by-play guy. I thought what he was doing was pretty cool. He's pulling guys in on color commentary all day long. Some of the guys that really know the game. So he did an excellent job with it. They had the stream going, and then there was a HD TV above the main TV, so everyone could watch standing behind. It was an excellent setup. It really was. So, yeah, so Joe Mama made a great run. If you want to check that game out, it's TGFN Retro. Joe Mama gets the win. I don't know if he was his first tournament, but he's a pretty good player. If you win the consolation versus some good opponents, you got to feel pretty good about that. And I think the consolation winner even had a trophy of his own, if I'm not mistaken. $75 prize. You can't go wrong with that. So here we go. We're moving on to the gold bracket. Let's take a look at this. So I'll talk about my games first. So my first opponent in the gold bracket is Brian Adams, and Brian just went 4-0 and just swept his group. So I've seen his name out there playing in the Detroit tournament, so I knew he was a good player. He called a matchup. Again, this is one that used to be a complete weakness for me, is Jets Saints. But I practiced with the Jets, so I at least knew one side of the matchup and was comfortable. So that's who I went with. I went with the Jets. The game versus Brian, it was a really weird game because I felt like I was in control early, and I was up like, I want to say 14-7. So I was feeling like I was in control. And Troy said that commentators sucked. Yeah, there might have been some better ones than you. We'll talk about them. But yeah, I played Brian, and then like something happened where he got up all of a sudden quickly. And then I had to come back on him. Then late in the game, he had the ball, and I think he threw a pick or a fumble right at the end. And then I was just in. I had the field position, so I just kicked the field goal for the win. It was a great game versus Brian. He's a strong opponent, and I snuck one out versus Brian there. Moving on, my next game was against Ryan McKay. Ultimate Weapon. I played him earlier in the tournament. and got shellacked. Now this time I got to call the matchup, and I called Eagles Bills. This is a matchup that I've had some success playing some strong opponents here in Chicago. I have called this matchup versus Tecmo Bow once and Mort in scrimmage games, and was able to pull out a win with the Eagles. So it's definitely a matchup I'm comfortable with. The way the game went, I returned the ball with the Eagles, and if I pick the Eagles in a matchup like this, I'm trying to score every time and keep the ball away from my opponent. The first drive was going pretty well, and then I picked the shotgun play that you would use with the Eagles, and threw to the tight end position on like a basically it's like a burn route. And the Bills, the Bills secondary is not that great, especially interception wise, not speed wise. And it was one of those where the defender was like not really even at the ball, but the ball like went to him and he picked it off, and that was really killer. So I'm down, he gets the pick, and I already returned the ball. With the Eagles, you're going to have a tough time on defense stopping the Bills. But the first drive, I was able to hold them to a field goal. So I'm like, okay, that's a success right there. Second drive, I'm really not doing too much. I'm getting some first downs. There's a play, 4 wide receivers in my past 2. Eagles scrambling around in the backfield a little bit. I got a guy wide open. I'm about to throw it, and it's one of those plays where Bruce Smith just blew up my offensive line, and the Eagles have a weak offensive line, so you can't really expect that. And then I didn't even have a chance to like out tap him. He just threw down QB Eagles. Didn't even have a chance to throw. I didn't even see it coming. And after that, the game went downhill. Ryan was able to score a touchdown, and I think he even scored again. So he played great defense. Ryan in this tournament was the one guy that I didn't play good games against him. For whatever reason, his play calling or his defensive play style, he beat me bad both times. So hats off to Ryan, Ultimate Weapon, good player. And so then that put me in the losers bracket, and then I'll talk about everybody else as soon as I finish up with my personal tournament report here. So at this point, I'm deep in the Mystic Mambas. I have made the choice that I'm going home. I don't have to go home tonight. So I don't have anyone to, maybe be mad about me drinking a little bit too much. So I'm just rolling in the Mystic Mambas. I didn't drink anything else at the bar all day. Or actually, that's not true. Someone did buy me a beer that wanted me to try it. I forgot. Rob was one of the guys I was talking to, and one of his buddies before that game. And at this point, I could say that I started to feel the buzz a little bit. So I went into the game versus Rob, and Rob's Tecmo name is Purple Haze. And I heard the name before because I was supposed to play him at Tecmo Madison 13, and they moved me to play Jim Bontempo instead. So I did research him a little bit before, but I didn't know this was him when I went into the matchup. I really didn't. I knew he was in the tournament, so I ended up playing him in this round. I called Eagles Dolphins. It's just going to be a pass fest. Both teams don't really have running games, but he did give me the Eagles. He took the Dolphins, which I think I was a little bit surprised about. But I think you could go either way. That's why I called the matchup, because it's pretty equal. It's just one you got to be prepared to play. First half, we just went back and forth. He was up 14-7, and then I scored right before the half, 14-14. Nobody's making mistakes. It's completely clean, just driving down the field, no defense. Then second half, I'm able to stop him a few times. I don't remember if there was a fumble or anything in there. I think there was at least one or two turnover on downs. And then this was one of those games where with QB Eagles, I wasn't I wasn't this is the game you try to play with QB Eagles where you just score every possession. And that's what I was able to do. He did hold me to a field goal the one time, but second half I pretty much owned it. But overall is a good game. He really didn't make any mistakes. I don't think he had any turnovers that he threw into interception wise. So it was just a well played game, and was able to come out on top in that one. Next round, backs up against the wall, playing Kevin. Now I played Kevin earlier in the tournament and I beat him 22-7. So I wasn't, I knew I could beat him. That was the first time I played him in the first round. Kevin got the matchup choice. He called a mid lower tier matchup of Cowboys Cardinals. Yeah, Tupa. I'll talk about Tupa, that's for sure. So yeah, I'm a little bit sauced on the Mystic Mambas, not gonna lie. Good matchup call. In this one, I take the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys can even compete with some of the mid-tier teams. So I'm feeling good about that. What I remember from the game is it was going back and forth the whole game, and neither of us were really doing much. There was like a lot of punts. I think I scored early the touchdown, and then I really wasn't doing much after that. Kevin managed to get a couple field goals. And honestly, I felt at the end of this one that I was probably just going to win with my defense. But then something magical happened. Kevin looked at his bench, and there was Tom Tupa at Tupa Bowl 4 in excellent condition. And I think we both knew at that point what the fate was of this game. He put Tupa in for, a 2-minute drive, and he marches down the field with Tom Tupa, scores with 12 Tecmo seconds left, and that's all she wrote. I had no chance to come back after that. Kevin managed the clock well. Tom Tupa comes through big in Tupa fashion at Tupa Bowl 4. That was a good game versus Kevin. So that eliminated me from the tournament. And overall, I'm happy with my performance, but I also realized that maybe if I didn't drink like 10 to 12 Mystic Mambas, that I might have had a chance at top 4. But, I had a great time. I wouldn't change anything. That's just the kind of day it was for me. So I just went for it. I just drove 5 hours, got up at 3:30 in the morning. So that's what I was doing. So let's take a look at some of the rest of the bracket here. Eric Kuhlman. Kevin says, you played great defensive game the whole time. Tupa went in good, and it was a fate. Yeah, he went excellent. So, yeah, I kind of knew that was in trouble after that. Eric, he went 4-0. Eric, the one thing I could say about Eric is he really knows the game, and I think he was probably the best color commentator the whole time, because listening to him talk, you can tell he really knows the game. It's no surprise he went 4-0. And going into bracket play, he plays Kevin and puts Kevin at 0-5 for the tournament, and then Kevin, of course, battles his way back later. But yeah, Eric's a good player, and he had a great run in the tournament. Let's see, Kevin Molnar. I didn't know much about him, but I was just watching the Tecmo Cleveland Sattelite tournament, and I saw him beat Ryan McKay, Ultimate Weapon. So he's a good player for sure. And it looks like he lost to Mort, which that will happen. Mort ended up winning the tournament. Ryan McKay, Woodshed. So double elimination. It's kind of tough to go through. Let's see who got eliminated later on in the double elimination. So right here, Jim Socks, he loses to Kevin. So Kevin, man, he had a great run to get 4th place. Kevin Molnar just lost to Ryan in the finals at the Tecmo Cleveland Satellite. Nice, yeah. Ryan's good. He got third at this tournament, Tupa Bowl 4, so I'm not too surprised. Uh, let's see. Chris Hendershot, he lost to Lewis, Andrew Vrabel, and then Lewis. He beat Mort earlier in the tournament. He's the only one to beat him all day, I believe. Uh, it was a Pittsburgh Cowboys matchup that I was able to call the game on, and he played good. I thought Mort floated a lot of balls in the traffic there, and they came back to bite him in the second half in that one. So Chris could definitely play. He probably got eliminated earlier than anyone expected, but that's the way it goes sometimes in Tecmo. With a 25-player field that was pretty deep, looks like Woodshed's the guy who took out Kevin Molnar, and Kilroy eliminated by Lewis. Brian Adams, that's tough. He played me, and then he had to play Woodshed. And then Lewis beat Woodshed 21-14. That had to be a good game. Check that out on the TGFN Retro stream, if it's there. Then Eric and Kevin met again. This was a great game. Came down to the wire. That's on TGFN Retro, twitch.tv. Want to check that one out. Andrew Vrabel, only guy I know out of Kentucky, says Kevin. Yeah, he went deep in the tournament too. Looks like top 6. And he lost to Ryan McKay and then Lewis. And then your final 4 was Kevin, Lewis, and I guess it was Ryan McKay was 3rd place, and then Kevin was 4th. So the Boonagel brothers meet in the championship game. It was a Bucks-Rams matchup. Mort was the Bucks, Lewis was the Rams. It was a well-played game up until right before the end of the half. Lewis made a critical error. He blitzed in with Kevin Green. There was a wide open, I believe, Mark Carrier just chucked it down, scored at the end of the half, and it wasn't like just like a lucky JJ catch in the end zone. So Troy's saying entire event is on TGFN Retro. Entire event's there. Not every game was captured on there, but the entire event is on TGFN Retro. And pretty much after that, Lewis wasn't able to recover. Mort got he got at least one JJ pick in the second half with Haddix, which isn't surprising, but it is a little bit against Jim Everett because he's a good quarterback. And then, he pretty much dominated the second half with defense with Lewis down. And then it just turned into like Lewis putting his shirt over his head. I think he showed his gut on stream a little bit, which was good to see. And then Mort wins the championship, Tupa Bowl 4. Great run by him. He got the trophy. I also really liked the trophy for first place because it had the Tupa Bowl logo integrated on there. That was really cool. So it wasn't just like, engraved text. You actually had the logo of the tournament on the trophy. So overall, I mean, format was great. Field was deep. Venue was awesome. Kevin threw a great tournament. Raffle was very generous. And Troy, TGFN Retro, everyone that provided color commentary did an excellent job. And I had a lot of fun at Tupa Bowl 4. And I think, it's probably the most generous prize-wise of any tournament that I've been to. I guess Tundra Bowl 4 would be close second there. They do offer quite a few prizes as well. But great tournament by Kevin. And yeah, Mort's the champion. So Yeah, you got to check it out. Kevin's saying never seen so many Wayne Haddix JJ INTs in my life. But he could do that. He's arguably the best defender in Tecmo Super Bowl, Wayne Haddix. So you never know what he can do. So that is the Tupa Bowl. So the next tournament I wanted to talk about is the Midwest Sattelite Tournament. The Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl Tournament is run by the Vogt brothers. Chris is the main one behind running the tournament. But then, of course, his brother's Matt Vogt, who just got second at Tecmo Madison. So we made the drive over. It just so happened I saw him post it like a few days before. I'm like, this is the next day after Tupa Bowl, and it's starting at 1:30 on a Sunday. I'm like, I think I could make this happen. So it's only about an hour and 45 minutes from Columbus, so not too bad of a drive. And you got to go a little south on the way home to Chicago, but it's still going west, so it worked out. So we went to the Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl Satellite Tournament. I did ask Chris before, because he said the tournament was for new players, and I've never played in their tournament before. So I asked him if I was eligible to play. He said, you're good to go. You never played in the tournament. So went on down there with my friend Joe. I was awfully foggy from the day before. It was a Mystic Mamba special, but I was able to pull it together like right before the tournament, because before that I was really hurting badly. So Joe did most of the driving that day. But me and Joe went in. Joe ended up playing in the tournament. I think there was probably 8 players there. Yeah, ringer. Yeah, I felt like when I went in there that's how some of the guys felt. Especially one of the guys I met there, Greg. He's like, "Oh man, I watched your videos." And then the other thing that was cool is I told Mort the day before, I'm like, I'm probably gonna go to the Midwest, or I'm going to the Midwest tomorrow to play in the Satellite tournament. He's like, "All right, I'll go hang out and play." So he just showed up, and they didn't even know he was coming, so he just walked in. So that was pretty cool. But I think Greg, he's been playing. He's extra sharp cheddar on the Discord. He was the main challenger for me in the Satellite tournament, but I think he was looking forward to having a pretty good shot, and then I showed up, but he did play me tough. In the Satellite tournament, I tried to give my opponents a little bit of an advantage team wise. The first matchup I called was Dolphins Bucks, so the Dolphins are the better team. But one of the things I found out is if you're gonna play players that might have a little bit less experience, if you have Wayne Haddix, I mean, you could do a lot of damage. And I think I had like 6 picks in that first game. Because the Bucks secondary is really good. I mean, Haddix has 75 INT, and then all the other Bucks secondary defenders are above 50. So they could pick off a lot of balls. I think my first opponent was Brian. I think he might have been related to the Volks. But it was a good game. It was fun. They had a stream of their own on Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl. So all the games from the tournament are on there. So you want to check those out. They did a live stream of those. So that game was on stream against Brian. My friend Joe, surprisingly had a good game. Almost pulled one out in his first game. I forget who his game was against. It might have been against Josh, my next opponent. I forget, but Joe almost pulled one out. But he did lose his first 2 games and got eliminated. But his first game was a good game. He called Packers Bears in the next matchup, and he lost because he was the Packers, so he had a mismatch there. So the next matchup was against Josh. Josh, I called Eagles Bucks, expecting him to pick the Eagles, and Chris kind of made a comment like, "Oh, if you're going to use the Eagles, you kind of really have to know how to use QB Eagles." So then he went with the Bucks. So I had the Eagles versus the Bucks in that matchup, and that was just really unfair. So I was able to beat him as well. But he's a good sport about it. So after those two, then I played Greg, extra sharp cheddar, and you could tell he's been practicing. What was the matchup that I had versus him? I think it was Bucks Bengals. I got to call the matchup again. That one's not as maybe imbalanced as people think. So I was using the Bucks in that one. Jeebus, Philly Tampa, yeah, Philly Tampa was the call on that one. So Bucks Bengals. The first half was pretty close. I mean, I maybe had 14 points in the first half and was able to win this one in a shutout. But, it was a good back and forth game. Like, if he had a couple breaks, he could have made a run. So I was able to beat him. And then it was just waiting for whoever's going to come back out on top. There was an epic game between so the votes, they really bring the atmosphere. For a small tournament like this, satellite tournament, you would have thought that we were playing a championship game every game in there. But the one game that had the most hype was the Josh versus Greg game, because I think Josh was also maybe related to the votes, or he's one of their friends. But Josh was down against Greg, and I think they expected Greg to win. He was up like, I think 13-0, and then Josh made a comeback and took the lead 14-3. So Greg had to kick a last-second field goal to win the game. But the whole time they're just going crazy. There's a good video on the Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl Facebook page of Josh going crazy and then pointing at the camera, and it's a good video. You got to check it out. But yeah, they bring the energy for sure. So Greg was able to pull that one out, and then I played Greg again. Now I already played Greg, so he kind of knew what to expect. He called Cowboys Cardinals in a matchup that I lost the day before to Kevin. But this one I was able to take with the Cowboys. Didn't have as many Mystic Mambas in me this time. But overall, it was a really fun tournament. Those guys are very welcoming. That you go in there and it's like you're longtime friends. So the Volts are cool guys to hang out with. I had a good time at the tournament. The last thing, though, it was just pretty funny, is Matt Vogt came up to me jokingly. He's like, "You're not just gonna come in here pumping your chest and beating all these guys." And I was kind of over. I'm like, "All right, yeah, you're right." So then after I won the tournament, Matt's like, "All right, you got to play me." So it was like I won the satellite tournament, and now I had to play the boss of the bar, which was Matt. Second at Tecmo. Madison beat Joey Gatz, undefeated streak. So I played Matt. He called Bengals Bears, and I lost that the day before. And I know he likes to use the Bears, so I went with the Bears this time. So I played him in that game. It started out, he was driving the ball down on me, and he was in the red zone, and I just got a called play fumble for a touchdown. So 7-0 started the game. He pretty much, to be honest, he kind of dominated the game through 17 points. So it was 17-7. I really haven't done much the whole game, but midway through the third quarter, I started to mount some some running plays on offense with the Bears. Neil Anderson, Bailey combos went with that. So I was able to score a touchdown, 17-14, and then I got a huge stop versus him, forced him to punt because he was deep in his own territory. And then I was able to get a little popcorn action with Neil Anderson to score another touchdown. So I was able to pull out a victory versus Matt, which felt good after winning the Sattelite tournament. But honestly, he even said after that, he's like, "Oh, that stupid scoop and score fumble." But I did come back 17-7. But overall, it was a good game. He wanted to play best out of 3, but I had to head back to Chicago. It was a long weekend, and I think it was like 5 o'clock we left their time. But overall, I'm really glad I stopped at the Midwest Tecmo Super Bowl Satellite Tournament. They gave me a T-shirt, some beer gear, and I got free entry into that tournament. So I'm looking forward to going there. July 28th is the main tournament. They have David Fulcher there, which is star safety on the Bengals. In the Tecmo Super Bowl Hardcore Championship that we're doing this Saturday in Chicago, first place is going to get paid entry into that tournament and then travel down there with me and Mort. So I'm excited about that and meeting him and getting to experience that tournament, especially with the energy that the votes bring to Tecmo is excellent. So yeah, overall great weekend. Glad I was able to go to Ohio and play in 2 Tecmo Super Bowl tournaments back to back. I mean, how could it get any better than that? It looks like Tecmo Cleveland is having a ton of satellite tournaments. They're doing back-to-back tournaments now, but a lot of Tecmo throughout the country to be played. If they do these back-to-back again, that would be awesome. Midwest Tecmo for life. But yeah, great weekend overall. Tupa Bowl 4 is an awesome tournament. I recommend it to anyone. Put that on your calendar for next year. And Midwest, big July tournament. But that is going to do it for me tonight. So if you watch this live, thanks for tuning in. Let me know in the comments, if you were at the tournament, what you thought of the tournament as well. So take care. Have a good night.